The moment my husband saw another man lean in and kiss my neck at a crowded party, everything we had built over 7 years shattered in less than 5 seconds. I watched the color drain from his face. I saw the hurt in his eyes before I saw the anger. He didn't yell. He didn't ask questions. He didn't make a scene. He simply placed his drink on the nearest table, looked at me one last time with a heartbreaking mixture of disbelief and disappointment, and walked out the front door. I could have stopped him. I could have called his name. I could have run after him and explained that nothing was what it seemed. Instead, I stood there frozen. When my friends asked if everything was okay, I forced a weak smile and whispered the biggest lie of my life. It's nothing, but it wasn't nothing. That single moment would uncover years of hidden pain, impossible choices, and a secret I had carried alone because I believed protecting the people I loved mattered more than protecting my own marriage. Looking back now, I realize silence can hurt far more than the truth. And sometimes the kindest decision in the moment becomes the cruelest mistake of your life. Dot dot dot. My name is Emily Carter, and until that night, I believed my husband, Daniel, and I had one of those marriages people quietly admired. We weren't rich. We didn't travel the world. We argued about groceries, laundry, and whose turn it was to take out the trash. But every disagreement ended with laughter. Every difficult season ended with us holding each other tighter. Daniel had this quiet strength that made everyone around him feel safe. He volunteered at the local food pantry every Saturday morning. He secretly paid utility bills for elderly neighbors who were struggling. He never talked about the good things he did because he believed kindness wasn't something you advertised. It was simply something you practiced. That was one of the reasons I fell in love with him. The party that changed everything was hosted by my company's new regional director. Everyone was expected to attend. It wasn't really a celebration. It was networking disguised as fun. Daniel wasn't excited about going, but he knew it mattered to my career. "You shine," he told me while helping zip up my navy blue dress. "I only shine because you're standing beside me," I joked. He smiled and kissed my forehead. "I'll always be beside you." Those words would echo in my mind for weeks afterward. The venue overlooked the Chicago River, glowing with warm lights that reflected across the water. Music filled the room. People laughed. Champagne glasses clinked. Everything looked perfect. Until I saw Victor. Victor Reynolds had worked with me 3 years earlier. Confident, charming, the kind of man who believed every woman secretly wanted his attention. Years before, he'd repeatedly asked me out despite knowing I was married. When I rejected him, he became cold and manipulative at work. Eventually, he transferred to another office. I hadn't seen him since. I hoped I never would again. Unfortunately, he'd been promoted. As soon as he spotted me, he smiled in that same arrogant way I remembered. "Emily, Victor, you look incredible. Thank you. I heard you're still married." "I am. Lucky guy." I forced a polite smile before walking away. I should have realized he wasn't finished. About an hour later, Daniel was talking with another couple while I waited near the dessert table. Victor suddenly appeared beside me. "I've changed," he said. "I'm glad to hear that. Can we talk?" "No." He stepped closer. "Just 30 seconds. There isn't anything to discuss." I turned to leave. Then it happened. Before I could react, Victor grabbed my shoulder, leaned forward, and kissed the side of my neck. It lasted less than a second. I shoved him away immediately. "What is wrong with you?" He laughed. "I wanted to see if you'd still blush." And then I looked across the room. Daniel had seen everything, every second. Our eyes met. His expression wasn't angry. It was devastated. That hurt far more. He slowly shook his head. Then he walked away. I wanted to run after him. Instead, Victor whispered, "Relax. He'll get over it." I slapped him. The room fell silent. Daniel turned the flash drive over in his hand as though it weighed 100 pounds. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "The security footage from the party," I replied. "It shows everything from beginning to end." His jaw tightened. "I don't know if I can watch it." "I understand. I've replayed that moment in my head every hour since I left." "I know, but if I see that I was wrong." His voice cracked. "I don't know how I'll forgive myself." I stepped closer but stopped a few feet away, respecting the distance he had chosen. "This isn't about proving you wrong. It's about showing you the truth." Daniel nodded slowly and walked inside. The cabin was silent except for the soft ticking of an old wall clock. He plugged the flash drive into his laptop. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the video. The ballroom appeared on the screen. There I was, standing near the dessert table. Victor approached. The camera clearly showed me taking a step backward. It showed him grabbing my shoulder. It showed him forcing the kiss against my neck. Then, without hesitation, it showed me shoving him away and slapping him hard across the face. The room froze. Daniel paused the video. His hands began to shake. "Oh, Emily." He covered his face. "I left you." Tears slipped through his fingers. "You needed me, and I walked away." I knelt beside him. "You saw something no husband ever wants to see." Anyone would have been shocked. But I should have trusted the woman I married. "You were hurt." I was afraid. He looked at me with tears filling his eyes. "I thought I had lost you." "You never lost me." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. I held him tightly. "I'm sorry too." He looked confused. "For what?" "For pretending it was nothing." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "After you left, people kept asking what happened." I smiled and said it was nothing. "You were protecting yourself. I was protecting everyone else from being uncomfortable." I looked down at my hands. I spent so much of my life pretending things didn't bother me. I thought staying quiet made me strong. Daniel gently lifted my chin. "No, it only made you carry burdens alone." His words hit something deep inside me. He was right. Silence hadn't protected me. It had protected the people who caused the pain. A few weeks later, the company invited me to speak during a workplace safety meeting. At first, I refused. Standing in front of hundreds of employees sounded terrifying. But Daniel encouraged me. "If one person finds the courage to speak because of your story," he said, "it will matter." The day of the meeting, my hands trembled just as they had outside the hotel. Daniel squeezed my hand before I walked onto the stage. "I'll be right here." I smiled. "I know." Looking across the audience, I saw nervous faces. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. I took a deep breath. I used to believe kindness meant staying quiet. I began. I thought avoiding conflict made me a better person. It doesn't. When someone crosses your boundaries, speaking up isn't cruelty. It's courage. The room was completely silent. I also learned that the people who love us can't read our minds. If we hide the truth because we're afraid of making things messy, we may lose the very people we're trying to protect. Several people wiped away tears. After the meeting ended, dozens of employees approached me. One young woman quietly said, "Thank you." Another admitted she had experienced something similar years earlier but had never told anyone. An older man shook Daniel's hand. "You stood beside your wife today." Daniel smiled. "I should have stood beside her that night." The man placed a hand on his shoulder. "The important thing is that you're standing beside her now." Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal, though neither of us was quite the same. Some scars never completely disappear. Instead, they remind us of what we've survived. Every Saturday morning, Daniel returned to volunteering at the food pantry. This time, I went with him. We packed food boxes together, laughed with families, and listened to stories from people facing difficult seasons. One afternoon, an elderly woman hugged us both after receiving groceries. "You two look happy," she said. Daniel smiled at me before answering. "We've learned that love isn't about never facing storms." He reached for my hand. "It's about choosing each other again after the storm has passed." I squeezed his hand, grateful that truth, forgiveness, and kindness had led us back to one another. Sometimes a single moment can almost destroy a lifetime of love. But sometimes, when hearts remain open and truth is finally allowed to speak, that same moment becomes the beginning of a stronger, kinder, and more honest future. A year later, Daniel and I found ourselves back at the same hotel where everything had fallen apart. This time, it wasn't for a company party. The ballroom had been transformed into a fundraising event for a nonprofit that supported survivors of workplace harassment and helped businesses create safer environments. When the organizers invited us to share our story, I hesitated. Daniel didn't. "If our experience keeps even one person from walking through this alone," he said, "then it's worth telling." Standing beside him on the stage, I looked out at hundreds of strangers. I used to think the worst thing that happened that night was the kiss I began. But it wasn't. People listened in complete silence. The worst part was believing I had to carry everything by myself. I was so afraid of causing a scene that I forgot the truth deserved a voice. Daniel took the microphone, and I learned that pain can cloud judgment. What I saw broke my heart, but I wish I had asked one question before walking away. He looked at me with the same gentle smile that had made me fall in love with him years earlier. "Emily, what happened? I can't change the past," he continued, "but I can choose to listen before I assume, to trust before I judge, and to stay when the person I love needs me most." When the event ended, a young couple approached us. The husband looked nervous. "My wife and I have been going through a rough time," he admitted. "Hearing your story reminded us that misunderstandings don't have to become endings." His wife smiled through tears. "Thank you for giving us hope." As they walked away hand in hand, Daniel wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "We almost lost everything," he said softly. "We almost did, but somehow, we found something even stronger." I smiled, resting my head against his shoulder. We found the courage to tell the truth. As we stepped out into the cool evening air, the city lights reflected across the river just as they had on the night our lives changed forever. The view was the same. We were not, and that was the greatest gift of all. Because real love isn't measured by a perfect relationship. It's measured by the willingness to choose honesty over silence, compassion over pride, forgiveness over resentment, and each other, again and again, no matter how difficult the journey becomes.